Hello. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I had a terrible nightmare reliving the video I saw out of Brikama yesterday. It makes me wonder where the humanity of Gambians have gone. It makes me wonder whether we understand what nation building is all about. It makes me wonder whether we know what a fellow compatriot is. It makes me wonder whether we understand humanity. In the early 90s, we have seen Rodney King and how he was brutally beaten by the LAPD. In recent days, with the age of social media, we have seen how the George Floyd beating went viral. When that video went viral, we saw how Gambians reacted, and their reaction was a natural reaction. None of us knew who George Floyd was, but we understood the price of humanity, the price of the human life. Therefore, we all related to George Floyd and the manner in which he was manhandled by the brutal cops of Minnesota. Yesterday, we have seen what the PIU officers did, too close to home, in our backyards, in the Gambia. And I can't see the outrage of Gambians. I can't understand why we don't feel irate. I can't understand why we don't have sympathy to understand that that person is a human being. And no human being deserves such a treatment. But I think we have lost the script collectively as Gambians. And this is an eye-opener that should allow us to rethink and gather our conscience and act conscionably. Why am I saying this? The Gambian has divided, itself into different political lenses and different political prisms. We see things only through politics. That is wrong. And it's wrong because a human being, regardless of where you're from, who you are, black or white, Wolof or Fula, Mandinka or Serahule, don't deserve to be treated the way that gentleman was treated. And I therefore urge all of us to reconsider our humanity, to reconsider our conscience, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And when good people keep silent, evil thrives. I think it is high time we ask the Human Rights Commission to give us a stocktake of things that have happened over the past months, and we're yet to come to a logical conclusion that is fitting for the crimes that have been committed. First, I can recall the incident right around Africell when a lady was brutally beaten by the PIU during the post-election troubles we had in the Gambia. Thereafter, we also saw the police, the PIU, shelling tear gas into Lawyer Dabo's home. Whether people were running in there or not is not the issue. That was excessive use of force that was not necessary. What we saw yesterday in Brikama, I think, is a cause for concern for any well-meaning Gambian to wake up and speak against brutality. But not only speak against brutality, we need to hold the Minister of Interior to account, because the Inspector General of Police works under him. We need to call the President to account, because he appointed the Inspector General, the Minister of Interior, who should make sure law and order prevails and the protection of the citizens and the people who live in the Gambia continues unabated, hitch-free, where people can also exercise their rights. But if people violate the constitutional provisions to keep peace and order, I think it is incumbent on the police to arrest an individual. But arresting an individual is different from brutalizing an individual. And also the Inspector General of Police must either act immediately or resign forthwith. You can't receive taxpayer money, use taxpayer resources, taxpayer arms, taxpayer batons to brutalize a fellow citizen who contributes towards the development of our country. I am troubled and I am deeply saddened. I am deeply saddened that we have lost our humanity as Gambians. We see things in colors like gray and yellow, green and purple, which is wrong. First and foremost, we are Gambians. First and foremost, we are one family. First and foremost, we are our brothers and sisters keepers. And what we saw in Brikama yesterday, it's beyond troubling. And I think something ought to be done, and ought to be done immediately. And that is for all respectable Gambians. Gambians with dignity. Gambians with honor. Gambians with conscience. To denounce the barbaric act of the paramilitary. And not only the paramilitary, but the people who appoint those people in offices. Starting with the Inspector General, he needs to own up, and owning up is taking responsibility for what has gone wrong. What has gone wrong? What has gone wrong is plain simple. There is disregard for the rule of law, there is disregard for the price of humanity, and there is disregard for the sanctity and dignity of a human being. So if any one of us want to shout about freedom for George Floyd, freedom for any other person that has been brutalized by police anywhere in the world, I think charity begins at home. But you see, the Gambian is very convenient. Most of us don't want to fall out of favor with the establishment. Therefore, we turn a blind eye to what is happening. But mind you, we are the establishment. The establishment putting you out of favor doesn't mean a thing. And those out of favor most likely are the great and gracious sons of that country, because the ones who are within the establishment and in the good books of the establishments are the ones who are sitting around idly watching whilst the rights of others are being taken and taken unabated. I had sleepless night last night trying to understand what has become of the Gambian. Well, part of me was unapologetic and trying to make excuse for the wrongs that we're doing. I said maybe 20 odd years of dictatorship has made us lose our humanity, but it goes beyond that. The Gambian is a selfish being. The Gambian is a self-centered being whose personal gains supersedes our collective good. And this is why our country is in trouble today. The elders in that country cannot speak truth to power because they've been compromised. The young professionals of the country have refused to step up and understand that nation building is just not only about knowledge, it's about conscience. That nation building is not about the willpower to participate, but the guts to call out a wrong as and when it happens. And as of now, I am not proud of my generation, because we are idly watching when non-entities like those paramilitaries are violating the rights of ordinary Gambians. Yes, it may not be close to home to you. Yes, we may not know the victim, but yes, we are all affected one way or another because of our humanity. But if Gambia means something to us, we should look out for each other and be each other's keepers. We should not wait for the Human Rights Office to do an investigation. We should all wake up and tell this government enough is enough, and brutality is not what we sign off to. Abuse of power and authority is not what we sign off to. Disregard for human life is not what we sign up to. I don't know this person, and most likely I may never encounter this person, but I am the person that was abused yesterday because I felt his pain. I felt his plight being helpless. I felt the manner in which his dignity has been robbed by some good-for-nothing people in my uniform, paid for by my tax monies. And that should not be acceptable. And none of you watching this video, if you are a person of conscience, should accept such a thing. But it starts first and foremost by you registering your dissatisfaction. Your voice must be heard, and you must be counted, and you must tell your government that that's not what you sign up for, and that's not why that government is there to take care of us. Fundamentally, the police is there to serve and protect and keep law and order. Well, we now know that the police are one of the biggest and greatest violators of rights in that country. 1, out of ignorance. 2, out of poor training. And 3, out of sheer wickedness. If we all sit down and watch, someday soon this thing will get closer to home. And when it gets closer to home, that's when we want people to get up and fight our causes. It doesn't work that way. And that's not how things happen. It happens when one is affected, all are affected. That's the humane thing to do. That's how our forefathers behaved. Edward Francis Small, during the Balangar incident, when he said no taxation without representation, he wasn't alone. Samba Balangar and others were there to show him support because what he was doing was for them. But today we have conveniently disassociated ourselves with the ills of our country because we just don't want to upset the status quo. We have conveniently, because of convenience, position, and sometimes money, decided that other people's problem is not my problem. How selfish of a people are we What has gone wrong with us? When did we become such selfless and heartless people that behave just like animals in the zoo? That's not the Gambian we inherited from our forefathers. That's not the spirit of Gambianness. That's not the spirit of nation building. That's not how we should treat each other, and that's not how we should allow our fellow Gambians to be treated any day, anywhere, be it in Gambia, be it in Western Europe, be it in North America, or even any other human being. There's a price to human life, and it is priceless. The guarantee of rights is inalienable, and it is ours, and no one should take that away from us. Robbing one's dignity is taking their humanity away. And what the PIU has been doing systematically, because now we need to agree that in the Gambia we have a systematic problem of abuse. And the abuse is not only by the PIU, is by our bureaucrats. People believe that public office is personal to holder. That's not the case. It's a privilege to serve, and that privilege must be taken diligently, without fair favor, affection, and or ill will. That privilege to serve must be done with pride. People wearing that uniform as police officers must be proud that we are here to serve and maintain peace and order, law and order for our citizens. I use the word our. They are the guardians of peace and stability in the country. But right now, they have become the custodians of anarchy. They have become bad elements of our society. But Mr. President, you failed. You failed because you never understood what security sector reform is all about. The same police officers that brutalized us for over 22 odd years are the same police officers brutalizing us today, because the culture of impunity hasn't changed. The policing culture in the Gambia hasn't changed. The first word we need to take out of the police is the word force. Gambia Police Force. A police should not be a force. A police should be a unit that is community oriented and is there to serve people and take care of the greater good's interest. And the greater good's interest is for us to sleep well at night, walk our streets without being, fearful of being robbed, being marked. That's what we expect of the police. But we spend considerable amount of money buying equipment for the police only to treat us as animals. That's not going to happen. Mr. President, once again, on this Friday afternoon, I know you're home eating your food. There are a lot of your fellow citizens who are not eating, not only because they cannot afford it, but because they're troubled. They are worried about the country we are building going forward. The country we're building going forward is a divisive nation, a nation that is not at peace with itself, a nation that has lost the grip of collective development, a nation that has lost the spirit of one Gambia, a nation that has lost the spirit of nationalism, a nation that has lost the spirit of humanity. Leaders galvanize people when countries fall to its lowest ebb. Mr. President, your silence is deafening. Your silence tantamounts to ineptitude, incompetence, or sheer wickedness. You make it out for yourself. I don't know whether you're incompetent, I don't know whether you're inept, or I don't know whether you're wicked, but your silence is just not helping the greater good's interest of the Gambia. Politics will always be around, and politics is there to stay. But what we saw yesterday is not politicking. It's blatant abuse of people's rights. It's blatant abuse of office. It's blatant abuse of privilege bestowed to public officials. The Minister of Interior, you are a shameful cabinet minister. You know, in January, 𝐚𝐧𝐻𝐽 decided to hell with the Gambia and I'm just going to take a back seat. Easier said. Easier said because I'm a person of conscience. Easier said because it's just out of frustration. But the human life deserves to be treated with dignity. The human life deserves to be celebrated. The human life deserves to be put in a pedestal where nothing else is put. But the gentleman yesterday was treated as a dog and a beast of burden. By who? People wearing our uniform. And guess what? Condoned, because those people should have been arrested yesterday with or without an investigation, because in plain sight we have seen excessive use of force. In plain sight we have seen abuse of office. In plain sight we have seen abuse of power. But if that is the culture of policing, nothing will change. Therefore, Mr. President, you are ultimately responsible for the woes that everyone is going through. I didn't vote for you, but I have no choice but to support your presidency, because the final arbiter, the Supreme Court of the Gambia, right or wrong, have decided that you are the rightful occupant of the office of the president. Therefore, as a Gambian, being part of the going concern, I have no choice but to accept. But in accepting you, I also have expectations. And these expectations is that you will run that country without fair, favor, affection, and or ill will. And also you should not look at your individual interest to the detriment of the collective good. Mr. President, to whom much is given, much is expected. The Gambian has given you much, and we have torn your fortunes, personal fortunes for that matter. You have seen the life you're living today. It's a dream life. Never thought you will have such a life. Be grateful to us. And being grateful to us is punishing anyone who takes away our rights. Being grateful to us is for you making sure that no one takes us for a ride. And the Gambian has been taken for far too long for a ride. But you see, the problems we are facing today stems from decisions you took. If a competent commission was set up and they gave you a report holistically, you should have implemented it to the tooth or to the letter, thereby making sure that no fear, no favor, affection, and or ill will was conducted. But you cherry pick who you want to save, and you created an animal farm. Is that animal farm that is responsible for the beating of the gentleman in Brikama? Is that animal farm that is responsible for the mayhem, chaos that our society is fast disintegrating to? Mr. President, be presidential, and being presidential is understanding that the ultimate authority of that country is Adama Barrow. And Adama Barrow should always be mindful that he swore to defend the rights of all Gambians. And you saw in plain sight how a fellow Gambian was brutalized. If that were to be your son, your nephew, your cousin, your uncle, your brother, your friend, we would have seen a swift action from you. But mind you, he is your brother by nationality. He is your brother by blood because he is African. He is your brother by virtue of just being a human being. Mr. President, we're tired of press releases. We're tired of you talking via proxy. We want you to have the guts to look at us in the eye and address the nation that the Gambia we want, the Gambia we all have to live in, is a Gambia that respects the rule of law, and you stop breaking the rule of law by bringing in people who are wanton economic gangsters, economic criminals, people who have been named by the TRRC, the Janney Commission, as culprits to the mayhem, be it economic or otherwise, that the Gambia has suffered and the Gambian has suffered. You see, your convenience is fast becoming our problem. Your disregard for the rule of law is fast becoming our problem. Your indifference to our plight is fast becoming our problem. We can only help you if you help us. And by the way, we are not your enemy because we get up and speak. We want a better Gambia. We dreamt of a better Gambia. We fought hard and vehemently to bring in a better Gambia by booting out Jammeh. But your administration to date is Jammeh 2.0. And that is not good for anyone, including yourself. The country is fast heading towards anarchy, and is all your fault. It's your fault because you refuse to be presidential. It's your fault because you refuse to act. It's your fault because you are indifferent to the plight of the Gambian, particularly a section of the Gambian. See, Mr. President, politics will always be here. But once elected to that coveted office, you must understand that you are no longer a partisan individual. You are a national figurehead. And a national figurehead takes care of all, irrespective of their political orientation, irrespective of their tribal orientation, irrespective of their socio-economic orientation. And this is where you have failed, and failed woefully. You cannot love the country and see the country disintegrate because of corruption, because of apathy, because of public abuse of office, and because of indifference to the plight of some, even if they're a minority, some Gambian. Even one Gambian matters in that. So I want to ask you, Mr. President, what's your vision for the Gambia? Are you going to sit and idly watch while we all disintegrate? Are you going to idly watch while our country goes down into chaos? Are you going to idly watch whilst the diverse people of the Gambia get disintegrated into units that are not beneficial for nation building and that are not beneficial for a cohesive national entity? What do you want, Adama Barrow? That's what we need to ask you. It's high time. It's one thing we ask you. You ask us that you want to lead. Now that you have been given a chance to lead, what do you want? Do you want to just sit down and, enjoy the perks of office? Do you just want to sit down and just enjoy our tax-paying dollars? Work for us, Mr. President. Stop being a sideline president. Stop being a president by proxy. We don't want to hear from your communications officers. We don't want you to be communicating with us via press releases. We want you to have the balls, Mr. President. I mean the balls. We want you to have balls to really, like the Americans will say, kick ass. Start firing people. Start taking people to court. Start making examples. Then, Mr. President, we will know that you are presidential. Up until then, you are not presidential. It's a waste of space, Mr. President, and we don't think you just want to be a waste of space. Do you want to build a legacy? Do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be respected? Do you want to be revered? I don't think so, Mr. President, because everything you're doing to date, Mr. President, goes against being a leader. I care less about roads you make. I care less about electricity or even water. What I care first and foremost is your government respecting the dignity of the Gambian. Is your government respecting the sanctity of our constitution by protecting the people that are sovereign? Gambians are sovereign, Mr. President. And you of all people should understand, because for far too long, you've been on the opposing side that has been brutalized, that has been victimized, and people who were too close to you. Solo Kuruma, Solo Sandeng, and others, Femi Peters, Amadou Sane, your mentor, the man you walked for and walked under. You have seen how they've been brutalized. You have seen Amadou Sane being paraded on TV, beaten to the point that he can't even open his mouth. Where's your conscience then, Mr. President? If it was wrong then, it is wrong now. And now you are in power. You are in control. You have the means, the wherewithal to make sure it stops. And that's why you should deal with your IGP. If Gambians means something to you, if you respect us, you should deal with your Minister of Interior. If you respect us, those people should no longer wear uniform even before going to court. If you respect us, you will come out on behalf of Gambia and apologize to that individual for the government of the Gambia brutalizing him mercilessly. Then and then, Mr. President, I will call you a leader. Then and then, Mr. President, I will know you mean good to your fellow Gambians. For all I see, Mr. President, is all about you. All about you in the sense that your life has gotten better. The life of your family has gotten better. The life of your whalers and the people around you has gotten better. What about us, Mr. President? We're not asking for favors. We're asking you to protect our God-given rights. We're asking you to defend my right and that gentleman's right to live freely as a Gambian and not be brutalized by anyone under the name of the Gambia, in the name of the Gambia. And that is what you haven't done, and that's how you have failed me and every other Gambian. But you see, what we're going through in the Gambia right now is ignorance and apathy. Ignorance in the sense that we still collectively don't understand what nation building is all about. Apathy in the sense that it's not me, so it's not my problem. It's your problem. It's my problem. It is our problem. Injustice to one Gambian is injustice to all Gambians. Because when it happened to the lady at Africell, the guy who was beaten in Brikama never thought he would be a victim. The tear gas, Mr. President, is another issue we need to bring. There is what you call clear rules of engagement. Our paramilitary has been trigger happy throwing tear gas. We have seen it at the youth high school sports competition somewhere around Brikama. That's not what we want. That's not how policing should be. Coercive policing don't bring any good. It only brings a society into chaos. And the next thing that's going to happen is mob justice. You have seen it with Gorgin Boop when people lit his house. These officers may someday be identified and mob justice will take its course. And that will further descend our country into anarchy. And that's not what we want. And if the country goes that path, Mr. President, the IGP is responsible, the Minister of Interior is responsible, and ultimately you are responsible for not acting when you should have acted. I therefore call on you respectfully, Mr. President, to understand that we are not your enemy. The Madi Jobates and the Nyanjais of the Gambia are not your problem. We are your problem solvers because we want to push you. We are your cheerleader, by the way. We want to push you to do what you ought to be doing. The people who are clapping for you, telling you you're doing a good job, those are your enemies, Mr. President. But unfortunately, if you have an ego deficit, you cannot understand that. because you see people who constructively criticize your administration as your problem. Oh no. You, Mr. President, cannot be more Christian than the Pope. You cannot be more Gambian than me. You cannot love that going concern called Gambia more than I do. Therefore, the failure of Gambia is a failure for 𝐬𝐭𝐢𝐜𝐞. The success of the Gambia is a success for 𝐬𝐭𝐢𝐜𝐞. Your success is my success. You doing good is a plus for me. The economy doing good is a plus for me. The Gambian living a happy and a fruitful life is a plus for 𝐬𝐭𝐢𝐜𝐞, because I won't worry about being robbed. I won't worry about people coming to beg. I won't worry about unemployment for my cousins, my kids, and my neighbors. So therefore, your success is my success, Mr. President. Stop seeing us as your problem. We are not your problem. We are the solvers of your problem by looking at you straight on and telling you what others too close to you won't tell you. 2016 to date, the trajectory that our country is taking is sad. 2016 to date, the level of corruption in our country is unacceptable. 2016 to date, what's happening in our hospitals is unacceptable. 2016 to date, what's happening in our neighborhoods is not acceptable. The level of drugs coming into that country and nothing coming out of it is not acceptable. The depletion of our fish stocks and nothing coming out of it is not acceptable. The sand mining going through the South Gambia is not acceptable. The impunity going on in that country is not acceptable. But Mr. President, if you're sitting down just watching like all is well, either something is wrong with you or you just don't care about the well-being of the people who voted for you. But like I said, ignorance and apathy are the problems of our nation, because the very people who voted for you are suffering. And then they are suffering in silence. Well, not everyone has a voice. So some of us with a voice want to speak out so that you, Mr. President, understand that all is not well in that country of ours. Mr. President, we are all in this together, and I am begging you to understand that it is ours and it's a collective endeavor. You are the pen pusher and we are the observers. And what we observe is what we will tell you, point blank, period, and simple, without tainting it, without sugarcoating it, without adding anything but the truth itself. You choose to be a president. No one forced you. But that office, in as much as it has benefits and perks, it comes with responsibilities. And you are not fulfilling the responsibilities of that office. And that's what the British and the Englishman will call abdication of duty and responsibility. You are abdicating your responsibility. You are shying away from what you ought to be doing for country. I know you may not be a bad person, but your indifference to the plight of our people makes you a bad president. And currently, your inaction tantamounts to consent of our current plight. If that guy in Brikama was your son, I bet the police officers involved would not have been walking the streets of Banjul today. I bet you would have fired the IGP. I bet you would have reprimanded or even fired the minister. Why aren't you doing that today, Mr. President? Because you care less. If you cared, you would have done something. You will not wait for the Human Rights Commission to put out a report. And the Human Rights Commission, it's good to investigate. We understand the limitations of your powers because you can recommend. But at some point, if you are not being effective as a commission, I think in total, all of you guys should just call it quits and tell the government, "Munulonyo jo bopa nga rochi lameñ. We just don't want a human rights commission that is an institution. We want a human rights commission that is a functional institution that is making a difference by curbing the excesses of power. Since the formation of that office, there have been numerous cases of rights abuse. We have seen individuals who have lost their lives. The Mr. Dabo at the anti-crime. We have seen the Gorgimboop still in office. We have seen other rights violators still in office. We have seen how the police are using tear gas and nothing is coming out of it. Therefore, if the institution that is manned by good Gambians, we know that there are great Gambians manning that office. If you guys cannot make a difference, I think it's high time you guys call it quits. That is honorable too. And that is a sign of protest. And sometimes we need to protest for the establishment to understand that we mean business. We cannot mean business and condone what's been going on in our country for some time now. People who voted for the president and those who didn't vote for the president are all supposed to be protected equally under the law. We are watching our country slip to a slippery slope that will not spell well for all of us, irrespective of where we fall within the political divide. That being the case, I think all of us, especially the citizenry of that country, must denounce police abuse, must denounce the abuse of office, must denounce the excesses of power, and must also tell the president that he was voted to protect and serve all Gambians irrespective of their political affiliation. Equally, Mr. President, any human being of conscience will not accept, condone, tolerate the excesses of power being meted on defenseless Gambians. What do we want as a nation? We want to emerge out of poverty. We want to be prosperous. We want to be respected. We want to live a dignified livelihood, a livelihood worth living. The human being is a priceless asset to a nation. And taking away the humanity of any Gambian is robbing the dignity of that Gambian. And Mr. President, you are solely responsible, but your IGP and your Minister of Interior are jointly and severally liable, like yourself, for what is going on in that country as it relates to our security situation. Peace is just not the absence of war, and that's what I want Gambians to understand. Our country as it is today is not at peace, and it's the ultimate responsibility of the president to make sure that something happens, something is done, and this issue is curbed. How can the president do that? Stop talking to your fellow Gambians via proxy. Come outright. Speak to Gambians. How dare you want to be a president if you don't want to speak to your citizens? How dare you want to be a president if you are oblivious to the plight of the Gambian? How dare you want to be a president? Not only you, but any other Gambian want to be a president and don't want to take the responsibility that comes with it. Yes, enjoy the perks, but also take care of the responsibility of being a president, Mr. President. Su fekkee ne en gi dafa diis nga randu. Affaire si dafa yomba torop nga bugga li neex ba pare nga bañ a jël li naxari. Package la. The presidency is a package. The package comes with perks, but it comes with responsibilities. You cannot enjoy the taxpayers' money if the taxpayer is suffering. You cannot enjoy the taxpayers' money when the taxpayers' money is being used to abuse a taxpayer. And you just want to fold your arms, sit down like nothing happened. It's an affront to our democracy. It's an affront to our sovereignty. It's an affront to the dignity of all, even the ones who are not abused. Watching those videos of the paramilitary abusing Gambians is painful. We have seen paramilitary officers celebrating putting tear gas into people's homes and beating people. That culture of impunity cannot stop if we continue to appoint people who come from that culture. The IGP will not see nothing wrong with that because that's the culture he came into office. Mr. President, we need disruptors in that security sector. We need people who are going to disrupt the status quo, and disrupting the status quo is us moving away from the culture of impunity. Outsiders are the only people who can do that, not people who are within the force, Mr. President, because the people who are within the force see nothing wrong with such an action. That's why if you go to a police station, all you hear, sorry for my language, fucking majohli, fucking aladefli. Because the training they received during boot camp, they are treated like non-entities. They are treated like nobody. Therefore, that treatment is what they pass on to people once they come to our communities to police us. When a police officer stops you, asks you for your documents, he will walk away because he thinks he has authority and power. When you give a police officer tear gas and baton, he believes it's not a deterrent, but it's an equipment to be used. And yes, they are effectively using those equipment, but they're doing it wrongly because what they are doing is brutalizing people that they should be protecting. But thanks to your silence, it is going unabated and it has now become serial abuse. Mr. President, the day that someone decides to take matters into their own hands and deal with the violators of rights, that's when you will wake up and understand that pusante chimbarai la em. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that there are few Gambians who are willing to get up and tell this government that this is wrong. But it's high time also our judiciary, once people take matters to the courts and sue the government for them to not only hear these cases, but punish the government to make it a deterrent. I don't know this individual, but I will urge him to sue the government to the teeth for each baton that was hit on him. And I hope the judiciary will do the judicious thing by making sure that the government pays for the transgression meted out on him. You see, Gambia will always be a third-rated country because of the inefficiency of our system and the poor human resource managing the country as is today. If you surround yourself with non-entities, criminals, don't expect good things to come out of that state house. The word honorable has been butchered in the Gambia because there is no honor among thieves. And what we are seeing right now is, Mr. President, you are surrounding yourself with an ilk that is not up to the betterment of the Gambian lot. You're surrounding yourself with a group of people whose personal interest supersedes the collective interest. You have surrounded yourself and ring-fenced yourself with economic gangsters. Mr. President, telling you the truth doesn't mean a sign of disrespect. Telling you the truth is a last resort because your inaction is forcing that country to go down and down so fast. Mr. President, please, please, by the power vested in you or unto you, do right by Gambians. By the power vested unto you once again, do right to your conscience. By the power vested unto you, do right to the desire you had to sit on that seat. You are the #1 citizen of that country, but your silence is making you the last citizen of that country. And that is wrong. That is wrong, Mr. President. That is so wrong. And it's shameful. And it's a disgrace to our nationhood. But all is not lost. Break away from that fence that you've been fenced with, because they don't mean well to you. And Mr. President, what baffles me the most is your choice of friends, choice of collaborators, choice of people you want to listen to. Mr. President, selective amnesia is maybe what you're suffering from right now. Because not long ago, Solo Sandeng was killed. Not long ago, Solo Kuruma was butchered. Not long ago, Femi Peters was beaten mercilessly. Not long ago, Amadou Sane was beaten mercilessly. And guess what? When all this were happening, the likes of 𝐶𝐸𝐵 were the ones fanning the flames and doing the bidding for President Jammeh. And now you feel so comfortable bringing him to the innermost cabal of your presidency and expect good to come out of it? Mr. President, you can't. It shows that either you're indifferent to the plight of the collective good, or you just don't know better. Which of the two, I don't know. I'm confused sometimes about your state of mind. I'm very confused. I don't know where you stand as it relates to the interests of the people. I don't know where you stand as it relates to the development of our country. I don't know where you stand for fostering unity and a cohesive unit as Gambians. Because the people you bring too close to you are too divisive. The people you bring too close to you are the people who made us suffer. 𝐶𝐸𝐵 is the architect of the impasse. 𝐶𝐸𝐵 was instrumental in creating refugees, Gambian refugees, across the border during the impasse. How on earth you feel comfortable bringing him too close to the proximity of power? But then again, it says a lot about who you are. It says a lot about the way you think. Please, Mr. President, it's never late. And don't see us as your enemies. We want you to succeed. And like I said, your success is my success, because life will be better for me in many ways, more than one, be it economical, social, my security arrangement, everything else. So therefore, your success is my success, and is the success of every Gambian. I accept your presidency because the law of the land, right or wrong, gave you a stamp of approval and an endorsement. And I'm a Democrat, and I believe in the laws of the land As faulty as they are, I believe in them. I don't have a choice. I want to upkeep law and order. So therefore, you are the president, and nothing can change that. And since nothing can change it, do right to Gambians. Do right to your conscience. Do right to country, and do right to your legacy. Everything you're doing, or not doing rather, because you're not doing much, is counting against your legacy. Everything you're not doing, Mr. President, is making the Gambians suffer. How much more do you want us to suffer? The level of corruption is serious. Imagine an aspiring parliamentarian in the person of Jawara, whatever her name is, from Talinding, was asked a question about the anti-corruption bill. She chose not to answer it. It says a lot about the state of our country. Imagine an aspiring candidate for the parliamentary election, Mustafa Low, asked a question. He said he wants to go to parliament to defend your projects and program. Our country is in deep, deep, deep mess. Our country is in need of salvation. And that salvation starts with decisive and effective leadership. And that's why, Mr. President, you need to stand up and be counted as the commander-in-chief that's going to make a difference. And that difference is the word no more, not again is something that should never again, is something that should mean so much to you. And if it means so much to you, Mr. President, you should defend the rights of people by punishing those that take the right of people away. On a final note, I want everyone watching this live feed to get onto their timelines, if they have conscience, and denounce what has happened yesterday at Brikama. Get onto your timelines and call for the resignation of the Inspector General of Police. Get onto your timelines and call on the resignation of the Minister of Interior for condoning systemic abuse of Gambian. This has now been serialized. The abuse by the paramilitary is no longer isolated incidences. It has become systemic and endemic. And the only way it will stop is to change the leadership. And the leadership starts with the Minister of Interior for not doing nothing for the people below and under his purview. And for the Inspector General for not taking enough action for people under his command. Those two individuals have failed Gambia and have failed you, Mr. President. And in failing you, they're making you look bad. And the only way Gambians are going to take you seriously is for you to immediately take action. And that action is the decisive action of telling them, those are not the type of officers I want to serve me and my people, we the Gambians. If not, Mr. President, you are the problem. If not, you will be seen as enemy of the people. And I don't think you want to be our enemy. Jiyulo ñu ko te ñun tamit jiyuñ la loolu. Liñ la ji mooy nga aar ñu, nga protect ñu, nga seet li gën ci ñun di ñu ko defal. Enough said, and I think, Mr. President, junju doy na borom hell. Su fekkee ne danga am hell di xalaat, di nga jóg nga def dara. We don't want to hear from a Sankare. We don't want to hear from an Ami Bojang. We don't want a press release. We didn't vote for a proxy. We voted for an individual. And that individual must make sure and should make sure the rights of all are respected, protected, and preserved. And we don't want to get to a point where we say, shame on you, Mr. President. We respect you. And we respect that office. And being the holder of that office, you must live to expectations. And as of today, on the matter of the security of the Gambian, you are not living up to expectation, because it's happening now and again, and not much is being done to curb it. Not much is being done to stop it. Not much is being done to make sure that the Gambian lives a dignified life. We are nobody's beast of burden. We are not animals. We are human beings. And like I said, I may never encounter the gentleman at Brikama, but I am the gentleman at Brikama that was beaten, because he is a Gambian. And if one Gambian is beaten, all of us are beaten. And that's why all of us must be irate. All of us must be infuriated by what we saw. And all of us must demand for action, and decisive and immediate action, to make sure such a thing doesn't prevail in our country. I thank everyone for listening. And like I said, I woke up feeling troubled. I woke up feeling this, I don't even know the word I want to use. I woke up feeling helpless. I woke up feeling that my dignity has been robbed. I woke up not understanding what a fellow compatriot is to other Gambians. I woke up not understanding whether we understand what nationhood is. I woke up not understanding whether Gambians understand that each of us are our brothers and sisters keepers. I woke up not understanding how we have lost our humanity. I woke up just confused. I woke up just perplexed. I woke up not feeling good about my nationality. I woke up not feeling good being a Gambian. And it's a pain. But it's a pain that can be redressed with good leadership. It's a pain that can be fixed when our president gets up, address the nation, take care of the culprits, not only the people with the batons, but the people who are supposed to take charge and take care of the people with the batons. Something ought to be done, and it ought to be done now. We don't need a commission. We don't need an investigation. We don't need anything. We just want you, Mr. President, to get up, go onto that podium, speak to us, apologize on behalf of all of us to that individual and individuals who have suffered the same fate by this brutal ragtag group of non-entity Gambians who don't mean well to the collective good of this country. Fire those people. Then and only then we will know that you mean well to country. God bless the Gambia. God bless the troubled and tormented country of ours. The country that is fast degrading into groups instead of a collective entity. The country that is losing its identity. The country that's losing its focus. And the country that's losing its trajectory to development. Thank you all, and a great weekend to you.